on GoSuffolkRams.com. From Boston, Massachusetts, welcome to Suffolk Sounds, the official show for Suffolk University Athletics. Hello and welcome to the Suffolk Sounds podcast. My name is Cam Brennan, and you can follow me on Twitter at Cam_Brennan1. That's CAM_BRENNAN and the number 1. That's how you can find me and interact with me on social media. As for today's show, we have Suffolk head athletic trainer Rick Cox. I sit down with Cox in an exclusive one-on-one interview, and that's what you can expect from today's episode. We'll give you fan access that you never thought you'd be able to get to. We'll have conversations with people that matter to you, and we'll get perspectives from those that have close ties to the Suffolk Athletic Department. And you can get that all here on the Suffolk Sounds podcast. Now, with that being said, let's get back to Cox. Cox has been in charge of the athletic department for the past 2 years. Cox and his team help the Rams' 19 intercollegiate programs stay healthy and work on strength and conditioning. Cox in particular is a certified strength and conditioning specialist, as well as a National Strength and Conditioning Coach Association registered strength and conditioning coach. Today we'll discuss the role of athletic trainers within the athletic department, the changes within the athletic department, and the severity of the obligations of the job. This interview starts now. Rick, welcome to the show. Thank you for being a guest on the Suffolk Sounds podcast.
Thank you for having me, Cam. I really appreciate it.
Now, before we get into a little bit of your background and a little bit of your work with athletic training, I want to hear from you. What were some of your quarantine activities? Did you have a basic routine that you kept up with to make sure that you weren't going insane during that period, or did you pick up any new hobbies? I know a lot of coaches talked about going camping. Some talked about spending more time with their family. What about you? What were some of your quarantine activities?
Actually, one thing that I really got into was hiking. I've been a pretty avid rock climber for the past couple of years, indoors in gyms. I've just recently actually went outdoor rock climbing for the first time. But one thing I did a lot of this past summer was hiking. We went up to New Hampshire. They have the White Mountains up there, and they have the 4,000 footers. And, I knocked off a couple of those, did a few hikes in Massachusetts. But that was probably my most consistent thing. The other thing that I did was when I couldn't go into the office to work out, I did a lot of working out in my backyard. I found this 50-pound stone that I had, and I just used that to do a lot of pushing, pulling, carrying, squatting with that, just to make sure I could get that workout routine and keep that going.
Yeah, and I think one thing that everyone has learned during that period was getting creative with the resources that you have around you. So that's very interesting how you're just able to pick up stuff from your backyard and make a workout out of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was one thing I found. The first couple of weeks I wasn't that great about it, and I was sort of like, well, I can't go to the gym, and I was sort of annoyed about that. But then I just woke up one day and was kind of like, what are you doing? Just figure out another way. And then so that's when I started, really like looking for things that were kind of heavy that I could move around without having to come into Boston to come into the gym.
Exactly. Who would have thought you don't need all this equipment to work out and stay fit?
Mm-hmm.
Now, before we get to your time with Suffolk and the changes that we've seen within not only athletic training, but the athletic department in general, can you give us a little bit of background about yourself, where you got your start within athletic training, whether it was an interest when you entered into college or something that you really picked up when from high school? How did you get your start and maybe your path to Suffolk?
Yeah, well, so in high school, I was a 3-sport athlete in high school. I played soccer. I was on the wrestling team, and then I did track and field in the spring. Realized pretty early on that pro soccer was kind of out of the question. I just didn't have the skills to make it far. But I did know that I wanted to stay in athletics in some capacity. And so when I was researching careers, we did not have an athletic trainer at my high school when I was there. There is one there now, I believe, but not when I was there. I graduated quite a few years ago in 2002. So I was sort of just researching different athletic careers, came across athletic training. I was pretty strong in science when I was in high school, so that really appealed to me. And then I ended up, after a couple of years at the University of New Hampshire, I transferred to Bridgewater State University, which was a much better fit for me academically. was a two-time graduate of Bridgewater State. I got my bachelor's in athletic training in 2008. And then I went back there for grad school, was a graduate assistant athletic trainer while I got my master's degree in strength and conditioning. From there, I got my first full-time job at Brandeis University out in Waltham. Spent 2 years there doing athletic training, strength and conditioning, dual role position. From there, went to St. Mark's School, which is a private boarding high school. In the same role, assistant athletic trainer. Ran the strength and conditioning department as well. And after 3 years there, I really realized that I wanted to get back into the college setting. That's just kind of where I've always pictured myself and where I've enjoyed my time the most. So I left St. Mark's and went to Emmanuel College, right across the city there. Same exact role, athletic trainer, strength and conditioning coach, and all of these places I've been the sole strength and conditioning coach. So I basically had to come in and build these programs from scratch. So that is one thing that I've gotten kind of good at, is making something out of nothing, really. And then I really enjoyed my time at Emmanuel, but I realized that I was getting more interested in leadership, and I wanted to grow as a person, and I realized I wanted to become a head athletic trainer and run my own department. So I started looking for those jobs. And then, I knew that Jeff Stone, who was the athletic trainer prior to me, was retiring. So I knew that job was going to be posted. And when it did, I kind of jumped all over it. And I've been here. This is year 3 now.
Excellent to hear. And during that time, at least just from year 1 to year 3, the Ridgeway building, which houses the athletic department, went under major transformation in terms of the facilities available to the student athletes. Can you describe, you always have a picture hanging up in your office that you like to show, whether it be recruits or people visiting the athletic training room for the first time, of how different it is now compared to what it was when you first got here?
Yeah, well, I would probably say the athletic training room got the biggest facelift out of pretty much anywhere in the entire building. We were in a tiny closet of an athletic training room that was the athletic training room and the laundry room, because the washer and dryer were in our athletic training room. And we had one treatment table that the 3 of us, Nick and Aaron and I, would kind of fight over and schedule people around to make sure that we had access to that table when we needed it for the athletes that we were working with. That was one thing when I got hired first, and then I was involved in the hiring of Nick and Aaron. And that was one thing that was stressed to me in my interview, and then I tried to stress to them, was we're going to have a very challenging first year. We're going to be in a small space. We're going to have to deal with, a lack of resources, but then we're going to have something much better in year 2. And we did. And I mean, the room is, it's probably at least 3 times the size now. We've gone from that one table, we have 6 now. We've increased our modalities. We've gotten more storage, which has been huge. And just so it's just a lot better for our recruits to come in and see a facility that's kind of world class, rather than just poking their head into the laundry room and seeing that there's a treatment table in there as well. But as you said, I like to remember where we came from. So we have a picture of what we used to work in, and I have that hanging on the wall. And I like to look up and remember and just kind of say, we're lucky to have what we have. And I also like to show, I think it's good to show the recruits, like, these are the transitions that Suffolk is making. This is where we place our priorities.
Absolutely. And seeing that those changes happen within the athletic department helps a lot with not only the future athletes, but the current athletes as well. And talking to a couple coaches, they always mention how it's great that they can go in there and just talk with not only you, Nick, and Aaron, but have the athletes where it's a sense of they can go there and get their treatment, rather they have to find a small location and get everything fixed up. Now, with that being said, can you just describe your role working with athletics and working with teams specifically? Because sometimes people may have the misconception of an athletic trainer is just someone who's on the sideline with a bag filled with Band-Aids and tape and whatever that the athletes will need. But there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes to get these athletes ready and playing at their best possible condition. Can you describe that role for you?
Yeah, so that's actually that's a battle that we in the athletic training field fight on a very regular basis, is people not truly being aware, especially people that aren't involved in athletics. They don't really understand what the job of an athletic trainer entails. And they do, you're right, they look at it as someone who, who either hands out water or, tapes an ankle and then lets the person go. But yeah, there is so much more involved. We are medical professionals. We are accredited through a national governing body, and we're trained in prevention of athletic injuries, rehabilitation of athletic injuries, evaluation of those injuries, but also catastrophic injuries that could occur, be those concussions or heat illness, all those types of things that could be quite devastating. We're trained to deal with those situations. So it's not simply, like someone rolled their ankle and we tape it up. We can deal with heart conditions. We're trained in obviously CPR. And I've never personally had to do CPR, thank goodness. But I would be comfortable doing it if I had to, because of the training that I received. So it's not simply we're on the sideline and we only deal with the person. We deal with the person. The one thing that's really good about athletic training is we're one of the few medical professions that see them sort of at the very beginning. We tend to see the injury happen, and then we see them all the way through to the time they return to play. Other people that they might deal with, whether they be doctors, physical therapists, other people, they tend to only see them for a short period of time, where we generally are there from the beginning all the way through to the end, helping all along the way.
And I think that's something that's always helpful within that process of being with an athlete at the start of an injury and rehabilitating and helping them to the very end as well.
Yeah, so that's one thing that's really important is we get to build really strong relationships with our athletes, because we do see them every single day. And, oftentimes we even see them sometimes more than their own sport coach, because we're still, once their season ends, like their injuries don't just go away magically. We're still treating them. We're still rehabilitating them in the off season. So even when their coach might be, they finished up their postseason, whatever they did, and then, they're kind of hands off for a little bit, we're still there. We tend to be kind of 12 months a year with these athletes.
And that's an important part of any athletic trainer that needs to be dealt with and understood by maybe the outside people within the athletic department.
Mm-hmm.
Along with your role within athletic training, talking to many of the coaches, they always say, whether it be the first interview coming in from an off-season is Rick's got them on a great conditioning program. They're in the best shape that they could be. Can you describe maybe the importance about strength and conditioning? I know you yourself certified a strength and conditioning coach specialist, and making sure the athletes are in the best shape, not only for in games themselves, but in the off season, and making sure they're in their best condition.
Yeah, well, even as an athletic trainer, one of our primary responsibilities is injury prevention. And then sometimes that's not always the best way to word it, because you can't ever truly prevent all injuries from happening, but you can be involved in the reduction of the occurrence of injuries by making sure that they have all the adequate skills necessary to compete, whether that's their aerobic fitness, their muscular strength. Those are really important. Like having those to be at their peak level is really good way to try and prevent a lot of these athletic injuries from happening. And a lot of like the contact, like if you run into someone, there's no amount of preparation you can do. If your bone breaks because you ran into someone, that's just what happens. But a lot of the soft tissue injuries that happen, strains, especially hamstrings, quads, calves, those types of things, we deal with those a lot. And those tend to come from someone who is not adequately prepared for the amount of work that they're going to do on the field. You want an athlete to be as prepared as they can, and it's been these soft tissue injuries have been really prevalent this coming year, especially because of COVID. We haven't been able to train the way that we've wanted to. Gyms have been closed for a large part of for the summer. They're still not open to full capacity now, and so it's been a real challenge to have athletes train the way that they would normally train in the off season, And that's why we're seeing a higher incidence of not just necessarily here at Suffolk, but across all sports, professional included. You've got these men and women who it's their job to be in shape to play their sport, and these professional teams, especially back in the early fall when professional sports were starting back up, we were still seeing lots and lots of soft tissue injuries, even at a higher rate than we would normally see them, because it just wasn't, there wasn't an ability to train and get and prepare the way that you normally would. So that's one thing that I take really seriously is, oftentimes I'll sit down and have a conversation with coaches after the season, and it's sort of like we give them a little bit of time off because they've gone through however long their season is, 3, 4, 5 months of hard, continuous work. So we usually give them a couple of weeks to sort of de-stress and heal up a little bit, and then really after that, like you can't really take too much time off because especially for if you're a fall athlete, you go through the winter, then you've got your spring season, and vice versa. If you're the spring athlete, you've got the summer, so you've got your 3 months, and then you're back into fall ball. So it's really become, if you want to compete at a high level, it's become like it has to be a year-round endeavor.
And I think that's been the case evolving as we've seen with programs I was talking about, making sure you're a full-time athlete and making sure you're committed to a program and giving 100% effort, where a season doesn't only happen within those 2-3 months span, but prepping for it and working at it after the season is just as important. And especially with the strength and conditioning aspect, there's always this misconception of getting stronger, getting faster, cutting weight and whatnot. For you personally, and if you were to build maybe an athlete that were to come to you just trying to be a better athlete itself, what would you maybe have them focus on, whether it be like something working with agility, something working with strength, something working with conditioning? What do you think it would overall be if a Suffolk student athlete came to you?
So for me, the way I heard this first, and the way I like to think it is strength underpins everything. So most of the time when we get athletes, especially depending on sport, a lot of them have never stepped into the weight room before in their entire life. And so the big thing is teaching quality movement in the lifts that are most important. So it's not necessarily about piling on the weight. It's about making sure form is appropriate, and then you progressively overload those good movement patterns. And whether that be, we start with body weight movements when it comes to a squat, then we put a dumbbell or a kettlebell in their hands and they goblet squat it, and then we move on to a barbell, and all those things take time, which is one of the hardest things. That if someone's really motivated, they want to come in and they want the results now. And it's just not possible. I mean, you're looking at to increase strength, you're looking at, really a minimum of 12 weeks before you can see any real appreciable strength gains. And then you have to maintain that. You have to keep on trying to get stronger all the time, or else, it's very true. If you don't use it, you lose it. And that's, strength tends to decrease a little bit slower than something like, say, aerobic capacity. You take 2 weeks off of running, you're way behind. You gotta kind of start over. And especially, like I said, these athletes that have never worked out before in their life, they can be kind of intimidated if you try and say, all right, here's a barbell, move it around. I mean, they've never even seen one in their life. So I'd say for me, trying to get stronger is probably the most important thing, because usually you get stronger, you can push more force into the ground, which makes you faster. And then once you get stronger and you have more core stability, you have more upper and lower body strength, you can survive a little bit better injury prevention wise on the field. If you're going into a tackle, you're getting bodied by someone on the court, the stronger you are, the less they're going to be able to move you, and the more successful you're going to be.
And I think that's important where regardless of what sport you are, you can always get stronger, faster, better with any sort of strength and conditioning. And you mentioned the weight room and how some athletes may have not stepped in it. A campaign and event that now has become in its second iteration this past October is called a Bench Press for Breast Cancer, where students are bench pressing weights to raise money for breast cancer awareness. And it's in conjunction with yourself and the athletic training department in the weight room, along with the athletics department, to raise money. Can you just touch on and talk about maybe your excitement and your thoughts about the event? and it's been successful in the past couple of years.
Yeah, I think it's a great event. Obviously, it's for a great cause. Last year, it looked much different than it looked this year, just due to the COVID circumstances. I remember last year at one point we had dozens of athletes in the weight room cheering each other on, taking their turn, trying to outdo each other. And it was just an amazing experience. That I think people just kind of came together, and we raised a lot of money. And then this year was a little bit different. It was a little more, we had to plan it out a little bit more. We had fewer people in the weight room. But I still think it was a great event. I'm looking forward to next year, hopefully making it even better than it was the last 2 years.
Absolutely. And for someone who's been at both of those events, I can tell you it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of great camaraderie when it comes around. And before I let you go, Rick, I wanted to ask you, all these coaches, they always defer to me. I can't pick my favorite moment. But as athletic trainers, you spend multiple seasons with multiple different teams. I have to ask, is there maybe a team or maybe a moment that you've had great experiences with, whether it be the character of the athletes or maybe the individual moments or funniness that may come out during a practice or a locker room or just a bus ride home?
Yeah, I'd say for me, it's hard for me to say that any team is my favorite because I really enjoy working with all of the athletes that I work with. But some of the best memories are for me with men's basketball here at Suffolk. They're just a great group of guys, and some of the funniest moments. We do a lot of ankle taping preventatively during basketball season just because of the nature of the sport. And so, the pre-practice, it's, a bunch of guys either waiting in line to get taped or they just like to hang out with each other. And so just having 20 to 30 minutes before practice and, there's 7 or 8 guys, maybe even more sometimes in the athletic training room, just joking around, having fun, making me laugh. It's just, that's some of the best parts is, I enjoy the work. I enjoy doing all of my actual duties, but the relationships I've built with the athletes is first and foremost. And those guys, they're so funny. They're such great guys. And yeah, I think it showed. I mean, they've had success the last couple of years and they play for each other and they love each other. And it just goes, that's how part of the reason Coach Duran's been able to have so much success in the last couple of years.
Yeah. And I think I can exemplify that just seeing the connectiveness. And I also have noticed sometimes there's a line waiting out the athletic training room for basketball because everyone's like, all right, let's just all do it together and let's get it over with. Rick, thank you so much for sitting down with me. I really appreciate your time and joining me on the Suffolk Sounds podcast. Thanks so much, Cam. I really appreciate you having me on. Ram Nation, if you like what you heard today on the Suffolk Sound podcast, be sure to visit our website, GoSuffolkRams.com. That's GUSUFFOLKRAMS.com for an insider's look on Suffolk Athletics. While you're at it, be sure to follow our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to keep up with the Rams and get an insider's look. Don't forget to subscribe, like, rate us, and leave a review on whatever platform you're listening to the Suffolk Athletics official show. Send in your questions. Who would you like to hear from, whether it be a player or a coach? Well, be sure to bring something new to every single coach. In fact, be sure to tune into the next episode when we talk to the Commissioner of the Commonwealth Coast Conference, Greg Kay. Until then, I'm Cam Brennan, everyone. Talk to you soon, Ram Nation. This has been Suffolk Sounds. Don't forget to subscribe, like, rate, and review however you listen to your podcast.